Jack Cooper wiped the grease from his hands onto his already filthy coveralls and stared at the mess of alien technology before him. It was the third time this week the atmospheric regulators had broken down, and as usual he was the only one who could fix them. Not because he was specially trained, hell no, but because he was human. And apparently that made him the designated handyman for every bit of tech the advanced species couldn't be bothered to maintain. Cooper to Central. I've got the air flowing again in Section 7. He spoke into his comm unit. You're welcome, by the way. Again. The reply came in the form of a series of clicks and whistles that his translator converted to the most condescending tone possible, but maintenance tasks completed by humans require verification by qualified personnel. Yeah. Send your qualified personnel. I'll wait here, twiddling my primitive thumbs, Jack muttered, leaning against the wall of Stellaris Station. It's the gleaming jewel of the Galactic Union and humanity's first home away from home. 6 years since first contact, and humans were still treated like the galaxy's janitors. The station bustled around him a dizzying array of species from across the known universe, towering Gractal diplomats with their shimmering scales, vaporous Etherian philosophers floating in their containment suits, 4 armed Quatzik merchants haggling over prices with gestures that would dislocate a human shoulder. And there was Jack, just another grease monkey from Earth. His comm unit buzzed again. Jack, you need to get to the council chamber. It's happening, came the voice of Dr. Elena Reyes, one of the few human scientists granted permission to conduct research on the station. 15 minutes later, Jack stood at the back of the massive amphitheater. Representatives from 27 species sat in tiered seating around a central platform where Earth's ambassador, a distinguished woman named Gabriela Ortiz, was making humanity's case. Which is why Earth formally requests colonization rights to the Epsilon Eridani system, she concluded, standing proud despite being dwarfed by the massive council members. High Councillor Vex Trilon, a mentat with skin that shimmered like oil on water, leaned forward on spindly limbs. Ambassador Ortiz, while we appreciate humanity's enthusiasm for expansion, the Council finds your species lacks the necessary experience for independent colonization. Perhaps in another century, when you've evolved beyond your current limitations. Jack watched Ambassador Ortiz's shoulders slump slightly before she straightened her spine. With respect, Counselor, humanity has adapted to space travel faster than any. The Council has made its determination, interrupted another alien, this one resembling a giant praying mantis. Humans require supervision. Your request is denied. The dismissal was followed by polite, patronizing murmurs from the gallery. Jack felt his blood boil. Humanity had been ready for the stars long before these pompous aliens had found them. His comm unit buzzed again. Jack, meet me in Lab 12. Emergency. Elena's voice was strained. When Jack arrived at the lab, he found Elena pacing frantically. Her normally immaculate lab coat was rumpled, and her dark hair had escaped its usual tight bun. They took it, Jack. They just walked in and took it all, she said, gesturing to empty specimen containers and powered-down equipment. Took what? Who? The Zelfian delegation. My research on radiation-resistant algae strains. 30 years of work. Elena's voice cracked. They claimed it was parallel research they had already been conducting, but they couldn't explain any of the methodology when I questioned them. Before Jack could respond, the lab doors slid open and a tall, blue-skinned Zelfian scientist entered, flanked by security. Dr. Reyes, the alien said smoothly, I've come to collect the remaining samples. Those samples were cultivated from Earth species. You have no right. But the Zelfian waved a 4-fingered hand dismissively. The Galactic Science Directorate has already approved the transfer. Your primitive understanding of the specimens was leading to inefficient research paths. We're simply optimizing resources. Jack stepped forward. You're stealing her work. The Zelfian's large, almond-shaped eyes blinked slowly as he turned to Jack. Maintenance personnel should not interfere in scientific matters. Perhaps you should return to fixing waste disposal units, which I understand humans excel at. As the aliens swept past them, collecting the last of Elena's research materials, Jack watched his friend's dreams disappear through the doorway. The look on Elena's face, devastation mixed with resignation, told him this wasn't the first time, and wouldn't be the last, that humans were treated as afterthoughts in this grand cosmic community. The Vrax arrived on Stellaris Station with the subtlety of a supernova. Their battlecruiser, twice the size of any other vessel docked at the station, announced their presence before they even stepped foot on board. Jack watched from a maintenance duct as they marched through the main concourse, 7-foot-tall reptilian humanoids with armored scales and elaborate cybernetic enhancements glinting beneath their skin. "Charming bunch," muttered Dex, Jack's maintenance partner, as they peered through the grate. "You know they've got 18 different words for conquest in their language and not a single one for please." The Vrax were infamous throughout the galaxy, a species that had evolved through endless warfare, eventually turning their aggressive tendencies toward technological advancement rather than self-annihilation. Now they served as the Galactic Union's military backbone, a position they exploited at every opportunity. "What are they doing here?" Jack whispered. "The Vrax don't do diplomatic visits." "They're not diplomatic," came a voice from behind them. Jack and Dex nearly jumped out of their skins. They turned to find T. Lork, an Ividian information broker who resembled a cross between a humanoid cat and a chameleon. His skin shifted color slightly, with his mood currently a concerned purple. "They're here for you. Or rather, for humans," T. Lork continued, his voice a soft purr. "Admiral Krell himself is leading this delegation." "The Admiral Krell? The one who put down the Centauri rebellion?" Dex whispered. "Yeah." "The very same," T. Lork nodded, his skin darkening further. "He's meeting with the High Council in 1 hour. I suggest you find a way to listen in." 2 hours later, Jack was crammed into yet another maintenance duct, this one running directly above the Council's private meeting chamber. He'd rigged a simple audio receiver to pick up the conversations below technically illegal, but he'd learned quickly that technically illegal was how humans got anything done around here. Primitive species with barely a century of powered flight, came a deep, grating voice that could only belong to Admiral Krell. Their emotional responses make them unpredictable, yes, but ultimately ineffective. They're technological infants with delusions of grandeur. Yet they've adapted surprisingly well to interstellar community, countered another voice, Councillor Jean, one of the few council members who treated humans with any respect. "Adaptation is not evolution, Councillor," Krell responded. "I studied their history extensively. Humans are chaos embodied. They destroy their own environments, wage war over imaginary boundaries, and allow emotions to override logic. Their planet is ideally situated for our purposes." Jack's blood ran cold as Krell continued. "The Vrax Dominion proposes using Earth's solar system as a controlled testing ground for our new planetary defense technology. The humans will be relocated temporarily, of course. We consider it an extended cultural exchange." "You mean weapons testing?" Councillor Jean said flatly. "Advanced defensive capabilities that require a realistic testing environment," Krell corrected smoothly. "The humans will be compensated with knowledge and technology beyond their current capabilities." "And if they refuse?" asked another councillor. The silence that followed was more terrifying than any response. Finally, Krell spoke again. "Refusal would be unfortunate. But we found that humans are quite reasonable when presented with overwhelming force. Their survival instinct overrides their emotional attachments." Jack had heard enough. He scrambled through the maintenance shafts back to the human quarter of the station, gathering Dex, Elena, and a handful of other trusted humans along the way. Within the hour, they stood before the Galactic Council, alongside Ambassador Ortiz, attempting to lodge a formal protest. The result was precisely what Jack had expected. "These are serious accusations against a respected member of the Galactic Union," intoned High Councillor Vex Trilon. "Do you have evidence of this alleged conversation?" Jack handed over his recording device. "It's all here." The councillor passed it to an aide, who examined it briefly before whispering something. Vex Trilon's iridescent face rippled in what Jack had come to recognize as amusement. "This device is not registered or certified for official documentation. Its recordings have no standing in council proceedings. From the gallery, Admiral Krell watched with cold, reptilian eyes, his mouth curved in what might have been a smile, revealing rows of serrated teeth. Furthermore, continued the councillor, unauthorized surveillance of council chambers is a serious offense. Consider yourselves fortunate that we choose to view this as a cultural misunderstanding rather than deliberate espionage. Ambassador Ortiz stepped forward. Councillor, regardless of how the information was obtained, if the Vrax intend to use Earth for weapons testing, the Vrax Dominion has submitted a formal proposal for a joint security exercise in the Sol system, interrupted Vex Trilon. It will be reviewed according to standard protocols. Standard protocols. Jack burst out, unable to contain himself any longer. They're talking about turning our home into a firing range. Krell's rumbling laugh echoed through the chamber. Such emotional creatures. This is precisely why humans require guidance. Your species can barely maintain the technology you've been gifted, yet you believe yourselves qualified to participate in security discussions. Perhaps the maintenance worker should return to unclogging waste pipes. Laughter rippled through the chamber, not from all species, but from enough. Jack looked around at the amused faces, the dismissive gestures, the patronizing head shakes. Even Ambassador Ortiz looked defeated, bound by diplomatic protocols that were stacked against humanity from the start. Jack stepped forward, ignoring the ambassador's attempt to pull him back. You know what, Admiral? He locked eyes with Krell. You've just made this personal. And there's something you should know about humans. We're at our most dangerous when things get personal. The laughter grew louder. Admiral Krell flicked his clawed hand dismissively. Oh, charming. The maintenance ape makes threats. As they were escorted from the chamber, Jack's mind was already racing. The aliens might have advanced technology, political power, and millennia of interstellar experience. But they'd made a critical error. They'd pushed humans into a corner. And nothing in the universe was more creative than a cornered human with a grudge. This is insane, even for you, Jack. Mei Zhang, Stellaris Station's resident human tech specialist, paced the cramped confines of Lucky's, the only bar on the station that served authentic Earth alcohol. We're talking about the Vrax, the species that turned an entire moon into a battle station because someone questioned their honor. Jack took a swig of his beer, actual beer, not the synthetic stuff most aliens drank. Which is exactly why we can't just roll over and let them turn Earth into their personal shooting gallery. I'm with Jack, rumbled Marcus Washington, a former Earth Alliance Marine who now worked security on the commercial deck. His massive frame dwarfed the chair he sat in, but we need more than just the four of us. T-Lawk's skin shifted to a thoughtful blue as he sipped his drink through a curly straw. The Nividian information broker was taking an enormous risk just being seen with them. 5, actually. I've secured us an unexpected ally. The door to the private room slid open, and in walked the last person Jack expected, Councillor Zhen's aide, a Tessarian named Vril. The insectoid being's compound eyes scanned the room nervously. I can give you 12 hours of access codes, Vril chittered softly. After that, my absence will be noted. Jack leaned forward. Why are you helping us? The Vrax helped pacify my homeworld 30 cycles ago, Vril said, mandibles clicking. There are now 17 million fewer Tessarians in the universe. Councillor Zhen opposes this plan, but is bound by council protocols. That was all Jack needed to hear. So, we've got 12 hours, limited resources, and we're up against the most militaristic species in the known galaxy. Sounds like a fair fight. May snorted. Your definition of fair needs work. Jack pulled out a datapad and placed it on the table. Operation Petty Revenge starts now. They think we're just emotional apes? Let's show them what emotional apes can do when properly motivated. For the next 3 hours they plotted. Not with the sophisticated strategic algorithms the Vrax would use, but with the chaotic creativity that was uniquely human. May's fingers flew over her portable terminal. I've analyzed the Vrax biosignatures from station records. Their cybernetic implants operate on a frequency we can disrupt with modified maintenance equipment. Their scales are heat-sensitive, Marcus added. During my security rotation in the diplomatic wing, I noticed they avoid the thermal regulation junctions. Get them too hot, they get sluggish. T. Lork spread a holographic map of the station across the table. Admiral Krell's delegation will be housed here, in the diplomatic quarters. Their security protocols are impressive, but they have one weakness: they're designed to stop sophisticated attacks, not, what did you call it, Jack? Good old-fashioned human bullshit, Jack grinned. They're expecting high-tech espionage and formal protests. They're not expecting us to be, well, us. By the time they left Lucky's, each had their assignments. May would handle the technical side, creating what she called selective system malfunctions. Marcus would coordinate with the handful of humans on the security staff. T. Lork would spread certain rumors through the station's gossip network. Vril would provide access and intelligence. And Jack would do what he did best: improvise with whatever tools were at hand. Back in his quarters, Jack emptied his maintenance kit onto his bed. Standard issue tools, spare parts, and the various odds and ends he'd collected over 3 years on the station. Nothing special to an advanced alien civilization, but in the hands of a human with a point to prove, they would become something else entirely. He picked up a sonic wrench and began making modifications. By the time he finished, it would no longer tighten bolts, but it would play havoc with Vrax cybernetic implants at close range. As he worked, Jack thought about Earth, about the forests he'd hiked as a kid, the oceans he'd swum in, the busy streets of his hometown. He thought about his parents, his sister, all the billions of humans who had no idea their fate was being decided by aliens who saw them as little more than interesting pets. "All right, Admiral Krell," he muttered, testing his modified wrench with a satisfying high-pitched whine. "Let's see how you like dealing with the maintenance ape now." Across the station, similar preparations were underway. May had sequestered herself in a rarely used data hub, fingers dancing across multiple screens as she inserted subtle code alterations into the station's systems. Marcus was quietly speaking with the human security staff, planting seeds of resistance disguised as standard protocols. T. Lork was already spreading whispers through the station's social networks, carefully worded rumors that would reach exactly the right ears. None of their actions, taken individually, would raise alarms. But together they formed the first human resistance in galactic history. Not with warships or armies, but with ingenuity, desperation, and a healthy dose of spite. The Operation Petty Revenge was a go. Admiral Krell's arrival on the main concourse was a spectacle designed to intimidate. A full honor guard of Vrax warriors flanked him, their ceremonial armor gleaming under the station lights. Behind them walked a procession of Vrax scientists and diplomats, all bearing the distinctive cybernetic enhancements that marked their status. Krell himself was impressive even by Vrax standards, nearly 8 feet tall, with scales that shimmered between deep green and obsidian. The cybernetic augmentations at his temples pulsed with blue light, indicating his direct neural connection to the Vrax battlecruiser in orbit around the station. "Admiral," greeted High Counselor Vex Trilon, performing the elaborate bow required by Vrax protocol. "The Council welcomes you and your delegation to this historic summit." Krell's reptilian face remained impassive. "Let us proceed directly to the planning session. My scientists are eager to begin mapping the human solar system for our exercises." From his position near an environmental control panel, disguised as a routine maintenance check, Jack watched the procession move toward the council chambers. He lifted his comm unit. "The snake has entered the burrow, Phase 1. Throughout the station, humans and their few alien allies moved into position. In the central computer hub, May activated her first sequence of code. In the security office, Marcus casually adjusted the patrol routes. In the diplomatic wing, T. Lork whispered to a Zephyrian ambassador about Vrax cultural taboos. And Jack? Jack simply waited for the environmental controls to register a non-existent malfunction, which would require him to access the maintenance tunnels running directly beneath the council chambers. The first sign that something was amiss came during the preliminary meeting. Admiral Krell was midway through his presentation on the mutual benefits of the Vrax security exercise when the lights in the council chamber flickered momentarily. A minor glitch, quickly dismissed. Then the environmental controls began to fluctuate. The temperature in the chamber rose 2 degrees, insignificant to most species, but notably uncomfortable for the Vrax with their heat-sensitive scales. Technical difficulties. Apologized a council aide, tapping at controls that inexplicably failed to respond properly. Krell's eyes narrowed, but he continued his presentation. The temperature rose another degree. A bead of moisture appeared on the Admiral's scales, the Vrax equivalent of sweat. Below the chamber, Jack worked quickly, rerouting environmental systems and installing small devices of May's design at key junction points. Through his earpiece, he could hear snippets of the meeting above. Complete scan of the Sol system, focusing particularly on the asteroid belt and the gas giants, which provide ideal testing conditions for our planetary defense grid. Jack gritted his teeth. They weren't even pretending this was anything but weapons testing. He activated one of May's devices, a simple signal disruptor that would interfere with the Vrax's cybernetic communications without being traced to its source. Above, Admiral Krell suddenly winced, raising a clawed hand to his temple implant. Several of his officers did the same. "Is something wrong, Admiral?" asked Councillor Zhen, who had been briefed just enough to play her part without compromising her position. "A minor communications issue," Krell rumbled. He'd continue. The meeting proceeded, but small disruptions continued to plague the Vrax delegation. Environmental controls that never quite stabilized, brief moments of static in their neural communications, minor system glitches that affected only the areas they occupied. By the end of the day, the Vrax were visibly agitated, a dangerous state for a species renowned for their military responses to provocation. Yet they could prove nothing. Each malfunction, taken individually, was within normal parameters for a station of Stellaris' size and complexity. The next morning brought new challenges for the Vrax. Their quarters had experienced climate control issues throughout the night cycle, leaving them underrested and irritable. The nutritional synthesizers produced food that, while chemically correct for Vrax biology, tasted subtly wrong, a trick May had managed by altering the flavor calibration algorithms. And then came what would later be known as the coffee incident. Jack was innocently performing maintenance in the diplomatic wing's common area when Admiral Krell and his senior staff entered. The humans present, mostly diplomatic aides and cultural liaisons, were enjoying their morning coffee, a ritual the Vrax found primitively chemical but tolerated. Maintenance worker, Krell addressed Jack without looking at him. "The atmospheric scrubbers in our quarters are malfunctioning. See to it immediately." Jack straightened, offering the precise bow required by Vrax protocol. "Of course, Admiral. Though I should warn you, there's been an issue with the gravity regulators in this section. They might fluctuate during repair cycles. It was a complete fabrication, but delivered with just enough technical jargon to sound plausible." Krell's eyes narrowed. "I've received no such alert." "Just came through, sir." Jack tapped his datapad, which showed nothing of the sort. "Should be a quick fix. Unless you'd prefer I delay the scrubber maintenance?" The Admiral waved him away dismissively. "Proceed with both." Jack nodded and moved to a nearby access panel, where he made a show of working on systems that were functioning perfectly. Meanwhile, he activated his modified sonic wrench, which was now emitting a frequency specifically calibrated to interfere with Vrax cybernetic implants at close range. The effect wasn't immediate. The first sign was a Vrax officer tilting his head in confusion. Then another rolled his shoulders uncomfortably. Admiral Krell himself began blinking rapidly, a hand rising to his temple implant. And then, precisely on cue, May executed her master stroke, a momentary disruption in the local gravity field, just enough to cause liquids to behave unexpectedly. Throughout the common area, coffee cups that had been placed on tables suddenly found their contents floating upward in perfect spheres of hot brown liquid. The humans, anticipating this, had already secured their cups. The Vrax, caught completely unaware, watched in confusion as dozens of coffee globules drifted through the air. One particularly large sphere of coffee floated directly into the path of Admiral Krell, who, disoriented by the sonic interference with his implants, failed to dodge. The hot liquid splashed across his ceremonial armor, seeping into the joints where it would reach the sensitive scales beneath. The Vrax delegation erupted in outrage. Security alarms blared as the gravity suddenly returned to normal, causing the remaining coffee to splash down everywhere. In the confusion, Jack slipped away, leaving behind a diplomatic incident of unprecedented proportions. By midday, the story had spread throughout the station. Officially, it was an unfortunate technical malfunction during routine maintenance. Unofficially, everyone knew something more was happening, though few suspected the humans were capable of orchestrating such subtle chaos. The Vrax, however, were beginning to suspect. At an emergency meeting with station security, Admiral Krell demanded a full investigation. "These incidents are too convenient, too targeted," he snarled. "Someone is interfering with our mission." The head of station security, a methodical algorithmic being named Director Pulse, responded with perfect logic. "Our investigation shows system fluctuations within normal parameters. The gravity incident has been traced to a scheduled diagnostic that triggered prematurely." "And the coffee?" demanded a Vrax officer. "An unfortunate coincidence," replied Director Pulse, who had been carefully manipulated by Marcus into reaching exactly this conclusion. "Human beverages are notorious for their surface tension properties in variable gravity conditions." Throughout the station, similar scenes played out. The Vrax found themselves delayed by malfunctioning doors, confused by misdirected communications, and increasingly isolated as other species quietly informed of the Vrax's true intentions regarding Earth began to avoid them. What baffled the Vrax most was the nature of these disruptions. They weren't sophisticated cyber attacks or strategic sabotage tactics the Vrax would have recognized and countered. Instead, they were facing something alien to their militaristic mindset. 1,000 small inconveniences, none worthy of a major response, yet collectively maddening. They were experiencing humanity's secret weapon, passive-aggressive resistance elevated to an art form. By the third day, Admiral Krell's legendary composure had visibly cracked. His scales had taken on a dull, grayish hue, a sign of stress in Vrax physiology, and the cybernetic implants at his temples pulsed erratically. The meticulous schedule he had planned for the Earth assessment mission was in shambles. "This station is fundamentally incompetent," he raged at an emergency meeting with the High Council. "Every system malfunction, every delay, every inconvenience has affected my delegation specifically." High Councillor Vex Trilon's iridescent skin rippled with concern. "Admiral, I assure you we've investigated thoroughly. Our systems show no evidence of targeted interference." "Then your systems are as primitive as the humans who maintain them," Krell snarled, forgetting diplomatic protocol in his frustration. Councillor Jane leaned forward. "Perhaps, Admiral, you are experiencing what humans call Murphy's Law, their observation that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. They've developed an entire philosophy around adapting to unpredictable failures." Krell's reptilian eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting these are merely coincidences?" "I'm suggesting," Jen said carefully, "that different species experience reality differently. Humans thrive in environments of constant minor disruption. It's possible your delegation simply isn't adapted to the human elements of this station." The implication was clear, and it struck at the core of Vrax pride. Their entire civilization was built on the belief that they could adapt to and dominate any environment. The suggestion that they were being undone by primitive human chaos rather than deliberate sabotage was almost more insulting than the disruptions themselves. Meanwhile, in the station's less prestigious areas, attitudes toward humans were shifting. Alien merchants, who had previously ignored human customers, now engaged them in conversation, curious about their adaptability. Engineers from technically advanced species began asking human maintenance workers about their unorthodox repair methods. The human stock was rising slowly, but perceptibly. Jack noticed the change while sharing a drink with T-Lork at Lucky's after another successful day of carefully orchestrated chaos. "The Ranix Trading Guild actually asked my opinion on their environmental system," Jack marveled. "Last week they wouldn't let me near their precious atmosphere generators." T-Lork's skin shimmered with amusement. "The station is watching, learning. The Vrax have dominated through fear for centuries. Seeing them frustrated by invisible obstacles is educational." Their conversation was interrupted by Jack's comm unit. May's voice came through, tense and urgent. "Jack, they're onto us. Vrax Security is running a Level 3 sweep of all human quarters. They're starting with yours." Jack was already moving. "Meet at fallback point Delta. Bring whatever you can't afford to lose." 30 minutes later, Jack, May, and Marcus were huddled in a rarely used storage bay in the commercial sector. T-Lork arrived moments later, his skin a worried grey. "They've detained 3 humans for questioning," he reported. "They found some of your modified tools, Jack. But they can't prove anything," May said. "I designed everything to look like normal wear and tear or software glitches." Marcus shook his head. "Doesn't matter. The Vrax don't need proof. They just need suspicion." Jack paced the small space. "We need to accelerate the plan. Krell's getting desperate, which makes him dangerous. More dangerous than he already was." May raised an eyebrow. "Different dangerous," Jack explained. "A Vrax who thinks he's winning is methodical, by the book. A Vrax who thinks he's losing gets creative, and we don't want Krell getting creative with Earth at stake." Their planning was interrupted by the storage bay door sliding open, revealing 4 Vrax security officers, weapons drawn. Behind them stood Admiral Krell himself, his expression one of cold satisfaction. "The maintenance ape and his accomplices," Krell said, mandibles clicking in the Vrax equivalent of a smile. "How predictable that you would hide among discarded equipment." Jack stepped forward, placing himself between the Vrax and his friends. "Admiral, come to fix the coffee machine yourself?" Krell was not amused. "Your primitive attempts at sabotage have delayed but not derailed our plans. The Council has just approved our preliminary survey of the Sol system, despite your childish interference." "Sabotage is a serious accusation," Jack said, adopting a tone of innocent confusion. "I'm just a maintenance worker dealing with an unusual number of system glitches. Funny how they all seem to happen around you, though. Must be Murphy's Law." The Admiral's scales darkened with rage. "Your insolence will not save your planet, human. When we've completed our exercises in your system, Earth will be recognized as Vrax Protectorate territory for your own safety, of course." "That's not going to happen," came a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Ambassador Ortiz standing there, flanked by representatives from a dozen different species including, surprisingly, the High Councillor Vex Trilon and Councillor Jin. "What is the meaning of this intrusion?" demanded Krell. Vex Trilon's skin rippled with what Jack had learned to recognize as grave concern. "Admiral Krell, the Council has received disturbing information regarding your true intentions for the Sol system." "From whom?" Krell scoffed. "These maintenance workers, these saboteurs." "From you, Admiral," said Councillor Zhen, activating a holographic projector. In the air between them appeared multiple recordings Krell discussing the weapons testing on Earth, dismissing human rights, planning the effective annexation of the Sol system. Some were from Jack's original surveillance, but others were from dozens of sources throughout the station, conversations captured in lifts, corridors, meeting rooms. "While humans may lack your advanced technology," continued Zhen, "they possess a remarkable tendency to be overlooked. Your delegation spoke freely in their presence, assuming they were too primitive to understand or too insignificant to matter." Jack couldn't help the smile that spread across his face. "We call it being a fly on the wall, Admiral. Turns out, when you treat people like they're invisible, they see everything." Krell's rage was terrifying to behold. His cybernetic implants flashed crimson as scales bristled along his neck. "This changes nothing. The Vrax Dominion does not answer to the Council in matters of security." "Perhaps not," acknowledged Vex Trilon, "but you do require Council approval for any activities in non-Vrax territory. And as of this moment, the Sol system has been granted provisional protected status under the Sentient Species Preservation Act." For the first time since his arrival, Admiral Krell looked genuinely shocked. "In the Preservation Act. That's reserved for species of unique cultural or evolutionary significance." "Indeed," said Ambassador Ortiz, stepping forward. and the Council has just recognized humanity's unique adaptive creativity as exactly such a trait, one worth preserving and studying rather than subjugating. Jack looked around at the assembled aliens, many of whom had dismissed or ignored humans just days before. Now they were looking at the small group of humans with expressions ranging from curiosity to respect to the beginnings of something like fear. They had won not through superior technology or military might, but through the distinctly human approach of being just annoying enough to change the game entirely. The Vrax departed Stellaris Station with significantly less ceremony than they had arrived. Their battlecruiser disengaged from the docking ring with mechanical precision, but the usual honor guard and diplomatic farewells were conspicuously absent. Instead, they left behind a station buzzing with a new understanding of humanity's place in the galactic community. Jack watched the ship's departure from the observation deck, nursing a beer as the massive vessel shrank to a pinpoint of light among the stars. "To Operation Petty Revenge," said May, raising her glass in toast. "The first and hopefully last time we have to save Earth using malfunctioning coffee machines." Marcus clinked his glass against hers, and to the look on Krell's face when he realized he'd been outmaneuvered by maintenance apes. T. Lork, whose skin had taken on the celebratory gold hue of his species, joined their toast. "The Vrax will not forget this humiliation easily," he warned. "They respect strength, but they despise being outsmarted." "Let them remember," Jack said, his eyes still on the retreating ship. "Let the whole galaxy remember what happens when someone threatens Earth and makes it personal." 3 days later, the Galactic Council convened a special session. The chamber was packed not just with the usual diplomats and officials, but with representatives from every species on the station. Jack, May, Marcus, and even T. Lork had been summoned to attend. Councillor Vex Trilon's voice carried through the chamber. In light of recent events, the Council has been forced to re-evaluate its understanding of human capabilities and potential contributions to the Galactic Union. The Councillor's iridescent skin shifted through patterns that indicated deep thought or rare honor when addressing humans. While humans remain technologically nascent compared to many member species, they have demonstrated unique problem-solving approaches that warrant further study and integration. Therefore, the Council hereby establishes the Cooper Protocol for future interactions with humanity. Jack nearly choked on his own breath. The what protocol? Ambassador Ortiz, standing beside him, suppressed a smile. "Just accept it graciously, Jack." Vex Trilon continued, unaware of Jack's surprise. "The Cooper Protocol recognizes that conventional metrics of advancement may not adequately measure human potential. It mandates that all member species must consider the unique human capacity for adaptive thinking when engaging with Earth representatives." In other words, Councillor Jean added, "We're acknowledging that conventional wisdom failed us. Humans may lack the technological sophistication of other member species, but they possess something equally valuable, perhaps more so." The chamber hummed with murmurs as translation devices worked overtime. Jack felt a strange mix of pride and discomfort at being the center of galactic attention. "The Cooper Protocol will ensure that human ingenuity is recognized as a strategic asset," Vex Trilon continued. "Furthermore, Earth will be granted observer status on the Advanced Technologies Committee, with the opportunity for full membership within 5 solar cycles." Ambassador Ortiz stepped forward to accept the proclamation with practiced diplomatic grace. "On behalf of Earth, we are honored by this recognition and look forward to contributing to galactic peace and prosperity." As the formal proceedings concluded, the chamber broke into clusters of conversation. Several alien diplomats who had previously ignored the human delegation now approached with curious interest. Jack found himself cornered by a Tassian diplomat, whose translucent appendages waved in what he hoped was friendly excitement. "You humans are most perplexing," the Tassian said through its translator. "You modified maintenance systems into a defensive network against a species whose technology is centuries beyond your own. How did you conceive of this approach?" Jack shrugged. "When all you have is a wrench, everything starts to look like a pipe fitting." The translator paused, clearly struggling with the idiom, before the Tassian's skin flashed with comprehension. "Ah, resource adaptation under constraint. Fascinating evolutionary strategy." Later, As the human team gathered in what had become their unofficial meeting spot in the station's observation lounge, Admiral Chen joined them with a rare smile. "Congratulations, Cooper. I didn't think your ridiculous plan would work, but it seems you've changed the course of human history." She raised her glass. The Joint Chiefs send their regards, and their confusion about how to classify this victory in the official records. "How about maintenance dispute resolved successfully?" Marcus suggested with a grin. May leaned forward. "So what happens now? Does this mean we get access to all that alien tech?" The Admiral's expression sobered. "Not immediately. But doors that were firmly closed are now cracked open. The Cooper Protocol may seem like symbolic politics, but it represents a fundamental shift in how we're perceived." Jack gazed out at the stars, the weight of what they'd accomplished slowly sinking in. "We didn't just save Earth from the Vrax. We changed the rules of the game." T. Lork, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. "The universe is a dangerous place, filled with species far more aggressive than the Vrax. But perhaps the Cooper Protocol will give them pause before underestimating humanity again." "To new beginnings," Jack said, raising his glass. "And to whatever impossible problem we have to solve next," May added. As their glasses clinked together, Jack couldn't help but wonder what other alien technologies aboard the station could be repurposed in ways their creators never imagined. The Cooper Protocol wasn't just about respect, it was about possibility. And for the first time since humans joined the galactic community, those possibilities seemed limitless.